Welcome to the weekly current affair class. Today we will be dealing with current affairs from the society section. You must have read the article with respect to the consequences of declining fertility rate that came in the Hindu newspaper. We will be discussing about the 5 stages of demographic theory, the positive and negative impact of declining fertility rates, as well as the other topics with respect to inclusion of new tribes in the scheduled tribes, and as well as the issue with respect to Eklavya schools that was also in the Hindu newspaper. So, starting with our first news, that is the consequences of declining fertility rate. To understand this, first the article mentions about the demographic theory of transition. We need to understand that what an interesting observation the article makes is that no doubt the global population has been 8.5 billion, okay, over the period of time, and it will touch this figure in 2030. But what is interesting to note that is that the global fertility rates have been declining over the past 70 years. While the population is steadily increasing, but the population, or sorry, the fertility rates, they have been declining after the World War II, we can say that. To understand this, to understand the rapid growth as well as decline in the population rates, we need to discuss the demographic theory of transition, which talks about the 5 stages of natural cycles through which every country passes. I hope that you must have learned it also in your society classes as well, but here also we will be discussing it in brief so that we can positively understand what are the negative and positive impacts of the declining fertility rate. So, coming to the demographic theory of transition, see, it talks about majorly it talks about the 4 stages, and the 5th stage is also predicted, but it has not been achieved in any society as so far. It is just predicted that so and so countries will be reaching the 5th stage of demographic transition. What does this theory state about? See, the theory states about the 5 stages the countries pass through when they are less developed to developing, and when they are fully developed. As countries pass through these stages from less developing to developed, the countries also pass through the stages of demographic transition. The decline or increase in fertility rates is in correspondence to these development levels. So, the first stage talks about is, as you can see here, the country is less developed at this stage. The birth rate and death rate are both high. Why? Because the country is less developed. The death rates are high because we have no as such infrastructure or health medical facilities in place which can cure the people from their diseases. Whereas the birth rate is high because the people are poor, they are illiterate, they have no as such awareness that what are the benefits of low fertility rates, or they need, because the country is involved in the agricultural or primary sector, they need more labor to work on the field, so they go for more number of children. So, that is our first stage. Population is stable because both birth rate and death rate are high. They as such cut out each other, where you can see, because of which, for example, 100 individuals are taking birth and basically 90 are getting death. So, what is happening here is basically you will see the increase here only is of 10 numbers. Okay, that is why population is low, because the both the indicators, the birth rate is also high as well as the number individuals who are dying in the country, that rate is also high. So, these both cut out each other. That is why population is low and it is stable at the lower level. Then, as the country progresses through the phase of development, you will see that population rapidly starts increasing. Why? Because the birth rate is high but death rate starts falling. As the country starts getting developed, it starts making infrastructure, it starts investing in health facilities, it starts making new hospitals, new doctors, new infrastructure for emerging diseases, due to which people are cured from their diseases and due to which death rate falls. But the country, the educational level of the country is not as such in comparison to the developed countries, due to which the birth rate is still high, or the people do not have such attitudinal change, or they do not have at such educational level where they can figure out what are the basic benefits of declining fertility rates. Or you can also relate it with the economic levels, that country has such has not transitioned from agriculture to the another sector. So primary sector is still the dominant sector, because of which the individuals need more number of labor to work on their fields. That is why the birth rate is also high. So as such, basically when birth rate is high but death rate starts falling, obviously what will happen is that country's population will start increasing. Take this figure here, see the population has started rising, birth rate is more, and here take the analysis that death rate has started falling. So this is the managerial, what we say, classification that you will also have to make within your answers. So further, as country moves through the process of development, it moves to stage 3, where the population starts slowing. Why? Because as birth rate starts falling but death rate falls more rapidly. Take the scenario of any country. See, even take the scenario of country, no doubt our population levels are high, but our population has started falling. Why that is the case? Because one, we are rapidly investing in our health infrastructure, due to which our basically death rate has started falling more rapidly, less number of people are dying within the country, and our birth rates have also started declining. Why? Because as the educational level of the country is increasing, government is making effective campaigns to slow down the fertility rates, it is influencing the people, and the economy is also getting transitioned from the agriculture and manufacturing sector, or from manufacturing to the service sector. Take the scenario of India in 1950s, what was our population level, and take the scenario of today. No doubt our population in numbers, absolute numbers have increased, but the rates are decreasing. Why? First of all, our death rate, see, our life expectancy levels have increased over the period of time, because our health infrastructure has improved. Further, today people are more aware about the declining fertility rates, because economy is also shifting and education is there, and government is also making effective campaigns to slow down the fertility rates. So you will see here in this diagram also that, see, this is declining death rate. Further, here birth rate was more or less stable, but after the second stage the birth rate has also started declining, due to which the population has also started falling. As the country progresses, or as it reaches the developed stage, the countries like US, Canada, England, what happens is population is low, as both birth rate and death rates have fallen. As the country will develop, obviously the health infrastructure will improve more, and the death rates will fall further, because the agricultural requirements are not there. Country has transitioned, economic structure has gone through a change. The agriculture requirements, or the labor requirements of the agriculture, have also changed. Earlier, the task which had to be performed by 100 individuals now can be performed through agricultural technology, and service sector is more dominant today. People are more educated, they are aware about the pitfalls of high population levels, and government is also making effective campaigns to slow down the population levels, due to which, see here, as the country goes through the fourth stage, basically both the death rate and birth rate have fallen, and they are more or less equal, due to which basically population is falling and then it has become stable. So these are the 4 stages due to of the demographic theory of transition, and last one that is predicted for some countries is the 5th stage, where death rate is more than the birth rate. Okay, more number of people are dying within the country, but because the people, or the birth fertility rates they are in the negative percentage, less number of people are getting birth in the country, whereas more people are dying within the countries, due to which the population levels have started decreasing very rapidly. And this is particularly the case of countries like Japan and basically Russia. Okay, Japan what are we seeing in the Japan is basically the elderly population is rising at a very fast rate. The working age population is decreasing because the population levels or the fertility levels have reached the historic low. So in nutshell, I will explain you again the 5 stages of demographic transition when the country is less developed, or when the developmental levels are rudimentary. The population will be low, but both the birth rate and death rate will be high. These are the contributing factors for the low population, because people are producing more number of children and country is not developed enough to invest in the health infrastructure to control the death rate, due to which both are high and they cut out each other, due to which population is low. As the country progresses to the developing level, its death rate starts falling because the health infrastructure has started improving. Government institutions are there, private institutions are there, education levels are also improving, and but further the birth rate is more or less stable at the earlier pace. Why? Because it may be the needs of the economy, agriculture requirements, labor requirements are there. It is a less developing country. Technological requirements cannot basically replace the agricultural labor. One thing. Second thing is basically birth rate is more because people, they do not have underwent the attitudinal change that is required in the society. And as the country progresses, it reaches a advanced developing stage, that is called as a third stage, where death rate is started falling very rapidly, but the birth rate has also gradually started slowing. Why? Because economy of the country is changing. It may transition from agriculture to manufacturing or to the service sector. One thing. Second thing, country's health infrastructure is improving at the very rapid pace, due to which basically the population levels have started decreasing. And then there is a fourth stage of transition, where death rate and basically birth rate both have basically reduced and they are more or less equal. Why? Because as the country will develop, its health infrastructure will also improve. Further, people will be more aware about because of the increased educational qualifications, because of the attitudinal change, because of the campaigns of government, or because of the requirements of the economy. Primary sector in today's developed country constitutes very less. Okay, and whatever requirements of the labor are, they are basically performed by the technology. So that is why basically what is happening is population has started decreasing. And fifth stage is a predicted stage, where basically both birth rate and death rate are not only low, but birth rate is in the negative percentage, due to which basically low population levels have started increasing. And it is particularly the case of countries like Japan or Russia, where the death rate is high, but the number of people taking birth in the country are very less. This is a demographic theory of transition. It may be very well asked within your GS paper 1. If you have seen the recent GS paper 1, you will see that the very technical questions have been asked by the UPSC with respect to the society part. So you must know this theory. Okay, moving forward to the impact part. See, what is the impact of declining fertility rates? Declining fertility rates, as we have already discussed, where the birth levels are or birth rates are decreasing. So what is the impact of it? First of all, we will be discussing the negative impact of declining population levels. So first, what is the scenario? It is the increase in the dependency ratio. Dependency ratio is that where there are less number of people who are contributing to the economy, and more number of people are there basically who has to take the services from the government, or government is contributing through social security benefits. For example, for the elderly population contributes very less in the form of taxes or in the form of economic productivity to the country, but they basically, government has to provide the social security benefits in the form of pension or the insurance benefits to these people. So increase in dependency ratio, it is very adverse effect for the country, because there will be less number of people in the working age group who will be contributing to the economy. First thing. Second thing is fall in the economic growth, as working age population will decrease. Like I have already mentioned that, for example, India's average working age population is 28 or 29. Okay, if this ratio increases, or it is also said that 60% of our people belong to the working age group, if this percentage decreases, it means that there are less number of people who are working in the economy, there are less number of people who are starting new businesses, but in opposite the case, there are more number of people who are dependent upon the government incentives to survive in society. So that is a very bad scenario for a country. Third one, increase in the fiscal costs. Just a linkage with it, because the government will have to spend more on the social security schemes, as like I've already mentioned, in the form of pensions are there, or in the form of health benefits are there, insurance benefits are there, or elderly pensions are there. Government has to contribute to that. In return, basically the elderly people constitute at least 10% of our population, okay, and in return their contribution in the form of taxes is very less in comparison to the people who are regularly working in the economy. So government will have to spend more on the fiscal costs in the form of social security benefits that the government is providing to the elderly population. Next one, there will be a risk of basically increase in the immigration levels, because when the working age population will decrease, obviously there will be the labor shortages within the economy, and due to that, basically because we, at least at the end of the day, we have to perform the work, we have to contribute to the economy. So there will be an increased chance of the migrants coming from abroad and taking those labor jobs. And what is the risk of that? Basically it can not only affect the basically working population, but it will also affect the culture of the country. That is also a basically very bad scenario for the country, because if the more number of people from abroad are coming and working in the labor sector, what will happen is they will also bring their culture along with them, and your indigenous culture will go through the process of change. That is the another negative impact. Now coming to the positive impact, what can be the positive impact of declining fertility rates? First of all is basically reduced population will free up the resources. Obviously if earlier there were 1000 people for 1 unit of land, and now if there are 500 people for basically 1 unit of land, the freeing up of resources will result in the more equal distribution. More number of people will be basically getting more units of land or more units of the resources. Earlier, because of high population, the resources were very scarce or the equal distribution was not happening. Next one, it will contribute to the environmental preservation, because less population means less needs, okay, less exploitation of the nature to fulfill. For take the case of any country, take the case of India. To fulfill our needs, we go through the basically exploitation of natural resources. We go exploit mines, we exploit basically hydropower dams, okay, and many n number of resources to fulfill our basic needs of the countrymen. But if there will be less number of people, we will be less willing to exploit the natural resources. Why? Because our needs will also be less. So that is a, because less number of natural resources will be exploited. Next one, easy maintenance of law and order. Obviously if in a city or in a rural area or in any social structure, if there are basically earlier, like I gave you the example, there were 1000 people living, okay, but now there are 400 to 500 people living in that particular area. It is easy for the police and administration to maintain the law and order, to find the culprits, okay, to find basically who has done the crime. And in this scenario, with less number of people, more like in rural areas in comparison to the urban areas, there are very less number of people residing. So what is happening is that in rural areas, most of the people or majority of the people know each other, and the crime rate automatically decreases in comparison to the urban areas. I am not saying that crime does not happen, but crime is very less in comparison to the urban areas. And if somebody has committed the crime, most of the individuals know basically that can be the culprit or who can be the culprit in this scenario. So if the less number of people are there, it is easy for the administration to reduce the crime rates, to basically to maintain the law and order. Next is basically more business and job opportunities. Obviously, for take the scenario, if we are a 1.3 billion populated country, government jobs are less for people, economic opportunities are less for people, due to which our brain drain is also happening. More number of people are migrating to the other countries. So less number of people will mean that basically more job opportunities for the people. Like I gave you an earlier example, if there were 1000 applicants for a government job earlier, Now if there will be 500 people for that government job, basically obviously it increases the chances of getting that job or getting that business opportunity. And last one, that less fertility rates will help women to maintain their health. What is happening in a countries like India is basically because of the repeated pregnancies or because of the less adequate gap between the birth of two children, women are not able to maintain their health, and due to which basically we have high maternal mortality rate as well as the high infant mortality rate. So the reduced pregnancies or reduced fertility rates will help women to maintain their health, and because if their health will be okay, they will be contributing to the economy, they will be working in the economic sectors, earning the money, contributing to the households and as well as contributing to the country. So these are the positive and negative impacts of the declining fertility rates. I will repeat in nutshell again. So what are the negative impacts? First of all is the increase in the dependency ratio, increase in the working. You just have to link these. First of all, high dependency ratio means more number of elderly people. If more number of elderly people are there, obviously it means less working population who will be less working in the economy. So economic productivity of the country will fall. Next one is basically government will have to spend more on the social security schemes, due to which its fiscal cost will increase. And the last one is basically the risk of immigrants, because the number of people from the other countries will be willing to come and take the labor opportunities. Okay, and the what are the positive impacts? Basically first of all is because the less number of people will be there, so less scarce resources and more equal distribution. Next one is it is basically environmental preservation will be more, because of our less needs we will be less willing to exploit the natural resources. And easy maintenance of law and order, women will be maintain not only the health but will be able to productively contribute to the economy, and there will be more business and job opportunities for the less number of people. Okay, these are the positive and negative impacts. Moving forward, we will also talk about the Indian scenario. What does our NHF, National Family Health Survey, talks about? Okay, National Health Family Health Survey states that fertility rates have dipped by 10% in last 5 years. It means our population is also decreasing. No doubt you may not find it in the absolute numbers, but in the coming 30 to 40 years you will be seeing that a rapid decline in population levels. First of all, basically it's stated that for the first time in 2016 our fertility rate was less than the replacement rate. I hope you have done the fertility rates, replacement, total fertility rate, replacement ratio in your society classes. Okay, and in 2021, out of all the states and union territories of the country, only 5 states basically had more fertility rates than the replacement ratio. And what were these states? First of all, basically Bihar, whose fertility rate was 3, then Meghalaya, then Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand and Manipur. The kind of questions that are being asked in pre, you should remember this kind of factual information, that when was the first time when India's fertility rate decreased below replacement levels, and what were basically which states were there basically whose fertility rate is still more than the replacement rates. There are 5 states: Bihar, Meghalaya, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand and Manipur. Further, economic surveys over the period of time has also pointed out that 2 Indias exist in this country. If we talk of demography, there are states basically who are more economically developed, who are more prosperous, and whose demographic levels, whose fertility rates basically are comparable to or equal to the developed countries like that of USA or England or Canada. And there are some states who are less prosperous or basically less economically developed, and whose demographic levels are close to the developing or less developed countries like that of Africa. And it stated that basically the countries whose levels are close to developed countries are the prosperous states like Kerala is there, Tamil Nadu is there, or Punjab is there. And the countries whose rates are close to the African countries or less developed countries, they are basically Bihar or Uttar Pradesh, or the country. You can also relate with this basically the states whose fertility rates are more than the replacement levels. So by going through this data, we can say that the demographic theory of transition is not wrong. Its basic assumption is as the country develops, the fertility rate level declines. So that is what we are seeing here. The states like Kerala, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, which are more economically developed or prosperous, their demographic levels have fallen, and the states with basically whose development criteria or whose economic development has not been adequate, these states have basically less comparable rates to the developed countries and more comparable rates to the sub-African or sub-Saharan African countries. So this was all that was there with respect to your theory of demographic transition and its impact. Moving forward to our next news, there was an news with respect to the Eklavya schools. What does basically that news stated that the Ministry of Tribal Affairs has not been able to fix the teacher shortage faced across 378 schools, and most of the teachers that have been recruited, they are on contract. Two issues are there with respect to Eklavya schools. First of all, the teacher recruitment is not there. There is an absence or shortage of teachers. And second one, the teachers who are recruited, they are not permanently recruited. They are on contractual basis, basically, which is harming the efficiency and productivity of tribal schools. So before that, we will discuss what is Eklavya school or what are Eklavya schools. See, it is a government scheme for what? For the construction of model further residential schools for Indian tribals, that is scheduled tribes across India, and it was started by Ministry of Tribal Affairs in 1997 to ensure that tribal children get access to the quality education. In budget of 2018-19, the government stated that in any area of the country or any block of the country where there is more than 50% of ST population or at least 20,000 tribal persons are living, they will be having the Eklavya residential model schools by 2022. So what are basically Eklavya schools? They are the schools for tribals. What kind of schools? Basically model residential. And what does your budget state about this? Basically that more than 50% or basically 20,000 tribals where there are living in any block of the country, that area will be having the Eklavya model residency school by 2022. So this can be asked with respect to your prelims exams, but we will be going a notch further and we will be also discussing what are the various issues or challenges with respect to the tribal education. Just give me a second. Okay. So what are the challenges in tribal education? This kind of question can be asked within your social issues part also. For example, it is not Eklavya schools is just a news that can be asked, specific question can be asked with respect to it in the prelims exams, but it makes a whole out scenario for our mains examination with respect to the what is the scenario or what is the status with respect to the tribal education. So what are the basic challenges? First of all, basic amenities in schools. In tribal schools of the country, they do not have basic amenities such as toilets, drinking water, electricity, adequate classroom for proper teaching, due to which they have not been able to perform efficiently or productively, because the basic necessities like in classrooms are there or boards are not there. If boards are there, chalks are not there. If boards and chalk is there, then benches are not there for children to sit. If classroom is proper, then basically toilet facilities are not there in the school, due to which the tribal schools have not been basically able to perform efficiently. So first issue is our basic amenities. Next one is with respect to lack of transport facilities. most tribal areas, as we have discussed in our last class, one of our last class also. If you haven't seen that, I have discussed what are scheduled areas and what are scheduled tribe areas. You can go for that video also to go for a further holistic analysis. There I have discussed basically most of the tribal regions or most of the areas where tribal resides, they are hilly or the remote regions where there is no proper connectivity, because of which the road facilities are inadequate and children faces transport problems to reach their schools. Connectivity problem is there. Even if school is there, basic amenities are also provided, but there is no as such road or connectivity tool through which the child can reach his or her school. Next one, communication problem. This is the biggest issue, because see, tribal culture is distinctive and unique with respect to mainland India. Okay, so we will have to recognize that their language and their culture is unique and different from us, and we will have to respect that. But what is happening is that the teacher in the classrooms communicates in the official or regional language which the tribal child is not able to understand. He is having problems with respect to syncing or understanding the concepts that are taught by the teacher in the school. So this kind of act as a dismotivating factor, because if the child is not able to learn in the school, if the child is not able to grasp the concepts, the child will not be basically happy to attend the schools. That is one of our biggest issues. Next one, there is lack of trained teachers. Due to shortage of teachers, basically tribal schools are unable to attract students and create interest. Likewise, we have discussed just recently with respect to Eklavya schools that ministry has found out that the most of the teachers are absent, or they are not recruited, or even if they are recruited, they are contractual teachers. So even if schools are made, if the schools do not have teacher, or if the schools do not have the required strength of teachers, that basically infrastructure is not going to perform efficiently, due to which basically tribal children are not moving to schools. So what we have discussed in this slide, 4 issues: amenities, then transport facilities, then communication problem, and next one is the lack of trained teachers. Moving forward to next issue, there is a participation in income generating activities. See, the tribal communities are still poor, or they are in the condition of poverty and backwardness. So to fulfill their livelihood or to ensure their survival, okay, what is happening is they are not ready to send their children to school. The major objective for them is any source from where they can basically generate income for sustaining their livelihood in an appropriate manner. They think that instead of sending our children to school, we should make them work in any productive activity through which they can generate income and we can ensure our survival. That is one of the biggest issues. If we are to be contribute to the tribal education, or to make ensure that the tribal child gets access to the school or even attends the school regularly or constantly, we need to ensure that tribals are out of poverty and backwardness, so that basically if their parents are ensured that we are able to fulfill our basic livelihood and we are secure, and thus we can send our children to school. So if any kind of question comes across with respect to tribals or tribal education or tribal conditions, the most important thing is basically in your answers, in your conclusions, you should make a mention of Zaza committee, the most prominent committee with respect to empowerment of tribals. If you have not read in your classes, basically go and read about it. Okay, the recommendation, what are the recommendations of Zaza committee with respect to the tribal conditions? Very important. Okay, what does it recommend? That to address this gender disparity issue in education among the tribals. It has made its recommendation that basically if you want to empower the tribal education system, what you need to do is, first of all, you need to address the gender disparity issue with respect to the tribal education. So this is all that is there with respect to the tribal education and the Eklavya schools. Eklavya schools can be asked with respect to your prelims, and overall scenario of tribal education can be asked within your mains examination. Moving to our next issue, you must have read this news also that the government has included some new tribes in the scheduled tribe lists. Again, I am repeating, if you don't know what is the difference between what are scheduled areas or what are scheduled tribes, please go and watch one of our last videos where I have specifically highlighted the difference between them. Okay. So, the Union Cabinet has proposed to include 15 tribal communities in this scheduled tribe list from 5 states, namely Chhattisgarh, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. 15 tribes have been included in the scheduled tribe list and they are from 5 states: Chhattisgarh, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. First of all, who are scheduled tribes? The Constitution of India, it states in its Article 336 subsection 25 prescribe that scheduled tribes means any such tribes or tribal communities as mentioned in Article 342 of the Indian Constitution. Those tribes who find a mention in Article 342 of the Constitution, they will be deemed to be known as the scheduled tribes of the country. Okay. Moving forward, what is the criteria, that what is basically necessary with respect to our prelims exams? Okay, that how basically scheduled tribes are included within our lists. First of all, we need to make sure that our definition is basically well understood. In our definition, what does basically Article 366(25) states that any tribe who finds the mention in Article 342. So, under this article there are two provisions, two methods through which basically scheduled tribe can be included in the list. First of all, the President of India may, with respect to any state or union territory, and if the obviously union territory is under the central government, but if the case is of state, then after consultation with governor by a public notification specify that any tribal or tribal community or a part of group will be known as the scheduled tribe. So, first scenario is the President of India basically for any state or union territory. Union territory is a centrally controlled, so he does not need to consult the governor, but in the case of state, with the consultation of governor, he can issue a public notification that any tribe or tribal community or a part of that tribe or tribal community can be known as the scheduled tribe. Its inclusion can be made in the list. What is our second scenario? That is Article 342(1) and 342, that Parliament by law, it may include as well as exclude from the list of scheduled tribes any tribe or tribal community. Okay, from the list of scheduled tribes. So, we have two scenarios here. First is by the President of India. Second one is that the Parliament can enact a law where it can include or exclude any tribe from the list of scheduled tribes. Okay, this was the basically recent mechanism through which 15 tribes have been included in the scheduled tribes list, okay, by the Parliament. Moving, so this is what we say, this is important for your prelim exam. This kind of question can be asked with respect to that how a scheduled tribe or how a particular tribal community can be included in the scheduled tribe list. So, you should know that the Parliament can also do it and the President can also do it. Moving forward, what are the basic conditions which or the basic methodology through which President or the Parliament decides that these tribes or these tribal communities are to be included in this list? See, while the Constitution of India, it is silent, it has not prescribed any methodology. Okay, your Constitution is silent, it has not prescribed about the criteria on which basis you can identify a tribe as a scheduled tribe, but the criteria that is usually followed is on the basis of historical backwardness. How much backward or how much basically poor or the tribe is, that is a basic criteria, and there is some defined things that are seen, that the indication of primitive traits. Okay, first thing, distinctive culture with respect to the other religions or other mainland groups that are there. Geographical isolation, for example, I have already told you that most of the tribals reside in the hilly areas. Okay, how much geographically excluded are they? Are they living in hilly areas or are they living in forests, etc.? Or shyness of contact. For example, like Andaman tribes are there, you must have known out they do not maintain contact with any outside world. So is there shyness of contact with the large communities or with the mainland groups? And last one is backwardness. What are their social economic indicators? How much socially poor or socially backward they are? What are their health indicators, education indicators? Okay, what is their life kind of lifestyle that they are living? What are the educational factors, health factors, or the economic backwardness, how much poor they are? These are the 5 traits that are usually seen while specifying a tribe or any tribal community as a scheduled tribe. I will again repeat it: the indication of primitive traits, distinctive culture with respect to the mainland religions, okay, geographical isolation, shyness of a contact, and backwardness. It may be social or economic, but you need to remember that this kind of traits or this kind of methodology, this is not mentioned in the Constitution of India. Okay, Constitution is silent about it. Government has devised its own method on the basis of which it identifies a tribe as scheduled tribe. The Constitution of India is silent about it. So these are the things basically that were prominent with respect to your society part in the weekly current affairs. Okay, so revise them, and all the best for your future endeavors. We will be meeting in our next class.